What's going on, guys? It's your boy Anthony back with another edition of the Fourth Man Podcast. Thank you to everyone who's tuning in to today's episode. We got another great one for you with an awesome interview on the back end. Guys, we are just over 2 weeks away from the first game of season 5. I'm stoked. The schedules actually just came out today as I'm recording this half of the episode, so I'm super excited to get into it. The only downside is I'm really dreading the other part of this episode, which will be mainly focused around preseason power rankings. And you're thinking, Anthony, I mean, power rankings, you don't have to do them, or it's not that bad. It's just the preseason. The league changes every year. I'm dreading it. I feel like we'll get into all of it, and the reason I'm just kind of dreading it a little bit, but it'll be a fun episode nonetheless. Before we get into everything, make sure if you're not already following our socials at Fourth Man Pod, making sure to update you guys on news, transactions, any kind of updates throughout the leagues. You can find our shows, episodes, listen to, where to listen to them, all on our social media pages. So at Fourth Man Pod, that's 4TH Man Pod. Can watch the shows on YouTube, youtube.com/fourthmanpod. And appreciate everyone who always tunes in on the Nothing But Net channel via Dash Radio on Mondays and Saturdays. Thank you to all of you guys who listen, and thank you to Dash Radio and the Nothing But Net channel for giving us a platform for others to listen to and consume some more Big 3 content. So that being said, let's get into it. First and foremost, the schedules are out. I feel like, no offense to the league, but they kind of did a porous job on the schedule drop. And I mean, like, the first schedule drop was just about like the cities and what days they were playing on them. But like when they released it, some of them were still to be announced. So I feel like that was kind of interesting I feel like when you drop a schedule, typically you drop it when everything's been completed, but maybe they're just trying to work out some details and with the season coming up and here soon, they just wanted to make sure at least the regular season was announced where those games would be played. So I guess I get on that understanding, but now we actually have the actual matchups and games that are coming. They announced the first games that were going to happen on Saturday. I really like this format. I know that they've kind of toyed with this back and forth. Should we have all the games on one day? Should we split the games up into 2 days? And I know a lot of that's how much of a time slot do we have via CBS? Are we working with other partners that will actually put our product on their platform? So I know there's been some work within there, but I think part of me wants to think that they're kind of experimenting too. Do we like all the games on one day, or do we like to have multiple days with the games? And this will be really fun because, like, think about it this way. There's potential that we'll have our first Big 3 game on Saturday, and then the final game of the NBA season that Sunday as well. Obviously, we'll have the second game of the Big 3 slate earlier that day, but we get a lot of basketball to consume that weekend if the Warriors and Celtics actually go, a full 7 games, which right now it's a 1-1 series. So that there's definitely a possibility of that, but it could be a really just overwhelming weekend of basketball. And I kind of want to start with the matchups, mostly because trying to find which other way to not talk about power rankings. And guys, listen, in the past, like, don't get me wrong, I love to try to see what teams I think are going to be good and what teams might fall on the short end. But oh my God, last year being just the worst one ever, thinking that BIG3 was going to be so much better. And yes, they ran into some issues, had some different injuries, and whatever. I can make all the excuses I want in the world for myself and try to justify my reasoning for putting them at the top. But like enemies, I fell for the enemies trick again for the second straight year. I thought they were going to be really good, and that didn't necessarily pan out. So power rankings, they've been a nightmare for me. Preseason power rankings have just been an absolute nightmare. My records, day or weekend to weekend records in terms of picking the games, not bad. Like I can usually hit over 500 because sometimes we'll have some true underdogs. Like this season, trying to do power rankings with this season, with the amount of talent that we've added this year and the way the teams stack up, I mean, really, I'm gonna do it. It feels like inevitable. It has to be done. We have to know I'm what the fourth man is literally the only podcast that covers the big three currently. We got to know what the power rankings are year in and year out. I got to hold myself accountable, and ultimately, it's just kind of fun to look back on to see how wrong that. Honestly, sometimes it's not a bad thing to be really wrong, because that just shows you the volatility and unpredictability of how the season's going to go. I don't know. I'm trying to talk myself into saying it'll all be okay. But right now I'm looking at this as a very half glass empty type ordeal. So in order to delay talking about the power rankings, which I've reworked numerous times throughout the past week, and including last night and today, I'm going to talk about the week 1 schedule quickly. I'm not going to give necessarily my predictions just yet. I feel like I'll save that for next week before leading up to the actual games. But let's talk about this. So week 1, June 18th and June 19th will be the first games of the 2022 Big 3 season 5 here. And the Saturday games include Triplets versus Trilogy, Threes Company, Bivouac, and Three-Headed Monsters and Ghost Ballers. The Sunday slate includes Aliens, Enemies, Killer Threes, Ball Hogs, Power, and Tri-State. Triplets Trilogy will be a battle of some of the best teams from last year. They played each other week 3. Triplets came out on top. Threes Company, Bivouac also played last year, but it's kind of the final game before they cut off those 4 teams, thinking around week 6. And Threes Company actually came out on that one. Bivouac actually fought pretty hard, but I feel like no one was interested in that game. It was the last game of like a 6-game slate in one day. So I felt like no one was actually tuned in. It was 2 teams that weren't going to have a chance to play the next week. Three-Headed Monsters, Ghost Ballers, I believe was the last game of the regular season last year. And ultimately, if Ghost Ballers had won by like some absurd point total, they could have made it. But Three-Headed Monsters actually came out really strong in that one. And Chris Johnson did all he could for Ghost Ballers, but had some injuries in play, and that was a tough one. And then the Sunday slate, Aliens, Enemies, that's a good rematch of last year. We saw Andre Owens hit his first game-winning 4-point shot of the season. He hit his second one like the following week, or maybe it was the week prior. That was a pretty nutty one. Killer Threes and Ball Hogs, a rivalry that we've seen throughout the first 4 seasons, throughout the first 3 seasons, did not see it in season 4, and now we get a chance to see 2 revamped teams go head to head. That should be really fun. And then Power and Tri-State, that was one of the better games of last year as well. I believe Power come out on top of that one. I feel like Power did. You know what? We're gonna make sure to get that accurate. I believe Power came out on top of that game. It was in week 5, Power did 50-47. So that was a really good one. I'm excited. I feel like Power and Tri-State, just historically, have always been good games as well. So I'll dive into those matchups a little bit deeper next week, but let me know whether you're watching this on YouTube or listening within the comments, or you're just following the social media pages. Look, I made a TikTok recently too, so make sure you're following over there. I'm going to try to do just a few quicker videos on there and do my best to be a little bit more attentive to the TikTok side of things, and maybe some of the people that are introduced to the Big 3 too heavily, we'll get them involved this year and involved within the community. But yeah, definitely I'll kind of break down those matchups a little bit more next week, and then also, like I said, I'll do a little bit of quick recaps on the TikTok side as well. But let me know, all in all, just let me know which matchup are you most excited for? I got to say, I'm pretty interested in Threes Company and Bivouac on Saturday, and then Killer Threes Ball Hog on Sunday, because we didn't get to see them last year. But Threes Company and Bivouac, I feel like I'm the most interested in throughout the weekend, mainly because based on how my power ranking set, they could just take a wide turn if depending on how that games go, which I think that's a perfect segue into the power rankings here. So without further ado, the 2022 season 5 Big 3 power rankings via the Fourth Man podcast. And guys, I work this time and time again. I really put a lot of thought and effort into this. I spent all night, feel like, thinking like different scenarios maybe I'm not thinking about this team enough, or maybe I'm overthinking this team. I really just try to put it together, and all in all, we're just not going to know until the season starts, right? There's so much that's unpredictable. I think kind of looking at my power rankings, which I ended up just going with the first one I did. So I reworked it so many times for no reason. But the reason I went with the first one I did is because I kind of candidly did it. I did it off the top of my head. I didn't look too much into it. I was just kind of like, oh, yep. Yep. I feel like trilogy should go there, and we'll add enemies within here. Like, it just seemed the most natural. So I figured, like, candidly, like, get the best results here. Maybe not exactly how the season pans out, in terms of like accuracy points. Maybe I won't get the best points there, but I felt like to be more open and candid about the power rankings, the best one was to present here was my season 1 rankings. And I think the most trouble, or the teams I'm having the most trouble with, there's 2. Oh, no, there's 3 really. Aliens, because they're bringing in three very experienced players, or 2 very experienced players, on top of the number 1, former number 1 FIBA player in the world, and Dusan Bullet, who had a really good season with power last year. They're bringing in Carlos Velasquez and Thomas Ivosev, who obviously within their own right, this is their professional career. The 3-on-3 game is what they do. I'm just wondering how they transition over to the big 3. That's, a huge X factor, I feel like, with how the season could go about. Power is an interesting team because obviously they got the number 1 pick in Glenn Rice Jr., the health of Katina Mobley, but like, I feel like Power is just always kind of a contender when Nancy Lieberman's at the helm. Even when I think Clyde was at the helm, right? Like, they still made the playoffs in season 1. So they're always kind of a contender within there, but I don't necessarily having a hard time understanding how that team is going to stack up with a few new additions within there. And then the other one is 3-headed monsters, the loss of Reggie Evans, adding in Jonathan Simmons. Reggie Evans is by far the biggest loss of any team this season. Obviously, he's going to come back next year, but to not have him, arguably the best I'm going to say the best big man in the big 3, that physicality, the rebounding, the defensive presence, really because of the rebounding that leads to a lot of the offensive scoring or a bunch of second chance opportunities. Like, you're really missing out on a lot. And I know they went out and they drafted a big with their last pick in Ab Indo, who played pretty decent in his few games, his couple games with power. I think he needed a little bit longer leash, but didn't necessarily have the time. But, you're not going to make up for the presence of what Reggie Evans brings you. And from a scoring prowess, like you did bring in Jonathan Simmons, who would have gone top 3 within this draft, had he still been a viable option. So those are the 3 that I'm really struggling with here. So let's just get into it. I think I told you on the last episode that my 1 and 2 have been pretty consistent throughout the offseason as they've even gotten their captain. So before they even, they might have been a little bit more interchangeable before they actually drafted their 2 or their draft picks. But they've been pretty steady in what I've been thinking. So I got Three's Company at number 1. I think I've raved about Michael Beasley for way too long now for most of my listeners who've been, with us with day 1. Shout out to you guys. I think I've raved about Michael Beasley for way too long now to not put Three's Company, not put his team at the top, because I think very, very highly of Michael Beasley, the type of game he has and the type of impact he's going to have in this league. Not to mention, he just got a 7-figure deal to play in China this fall. So congrats to him. Kudos to him. This will be a nice little warm-up for him. I really think this guy's going to go out and get the MVP. That's maybe a bold prediction I'm putting out there. But Three's Company, captain-wise, I think they might have the 3 best captains: Mario Chalmers, obviously Beasley, and then adding Brandon Rush, who I think is a huge X factor. I don't think we talk about him enough when talking about Three's Company. And then they went out and got 2 big 3 vets, right? They got Julian Wright, who's one of the most versatile guys in the league. And they got Alex Scales, who's more than a shooter, which he proved last year in his short stint with Ghost Ballers. He just came on and brought a lot of scoring. And he's going to, provide a lot of space because of his shooting ability. But I think he's going to be more of a threat than people realize. So I got Three's Company at 1, and then Trilogy. Obviously, they lose Jared Jack, but they add Earl Clark. and they bring back the rest of the team as well. They also add another big three vet in David Hawkins, who I think is a very versatile player as well. And I think he's going to be a lot healthier this season. He didn't necessarily come in the best of shape, had some things going on. If you follow his, his Instagram page or social media page, you'll see that he was suffering through an injury. I think it's going to come back better than ever. He's been working with flight, and it's hard to, put the chance any lower than 2. It might even be disrespectful to put them at 2 because they were the best team last year. So 3's company, Trilogy are my 1 and 2. Having a hard time because these will not be our Bahamas teams this year. I guess these will be our Miami teams. So still getting a trip to the beach, still getting a kind of a resort lifestyle. If you make the championship game, I think the first playoff game will be in Atlanta. So maybe you have to get out, have to be the final 2 to get to Miami. So we'll call these the Atlanta teams or the playoff teams in general. I got Killer 3s at number 3. Maybe a bold statement there, but another team that, since their 2019 run and the type of team they had there. I mean, last year, I think a lot of people counted them out. They got a rough start. And honestly, the way they ended, I think they probably deserved the playoff spot. I think they won their last 5 games. And we've talked about this a couple times, probably should have played 3-headed monsters for the right to go to the playoffs, but didn't pan out that way. They still got a nice win over the eventual champ Trilogy. They were the last team to beat them. So I don't know. I think Dante Green, potential MVP candidate as well this year. He was really good last year. There's an argument he could have, probably would have, should have won it last year, just to be honest. Bring back Frank Nitti, the will and grit. I think there's just a lot of chemistry within this team, right? Especially within their captains with Nitti and Josh Powell. Then they bring on Dominique Johnson, who Dante called he's going to be the rookie of the year, apparently, according to Dante. I don't know how much bias was within that, or he really just, he really thinks Dominique has a lot of game, but the other guys kind of reiterated that as well. A lot of game from him. And then they brought on KJ McDaniel. So I like the chemistry and culture Killer 3s is building. I think Dante Green is one of the more premier players in this league, and I think he's going to help them get to the playoffs this year and not miss it again. I got them at 3. And then hard to not put triplets in the top 4. I did my best, but you got ISO Joe, the 2-time MVP. He doesn't look like he's slowing down, at least not in this format, anytime soon. Their offense got a lot more lethal. They added Jeremy Pargo, who's, I think, one of the best scorers in the league when he actually plays. He's missed a lot of games. So hoping for a healthy season from him. Pair him alongside Gennaro, who's going to be, he's been great for triplets. I know not everyone's happy about the big they got, but like Ryan Hollins is, he's played in this league time and time again. So there's got to be something that he's doing right there. And he's made his mark in a few games he's played. Also another guy that hasn't necessarily gotten the chance to play like a full season. So hopefully he stays healthy or can make the commitment in the time. But I think too, I think we're making maybe too much of an emphasis on triplets in the big. I know they got a little bit smaller because they lost Allen Anderson, Jamari Moon, and obviously Al Jefferson, but they didn't play Big Al that much. They played him in spurts. I think they'll be fine, especially because they added Alonzo G in the second round, who one of the mainstays of Big Flag last year. I think he can play both ways. He looks really good. From the footage I've seen this offseason, I think he's going to be a big X factor for them. So I put triplets, as my 4th team. Kind of on the bubble or the outside looking in, I got Tri-State's a pretty interesting team, adding DeJuan Summers and Garland Green, who I really liked what I saw from both of their highlight tapes. They just got a lot of size and length, adding that on to Jason Richardson, Larry Sanders, and then got JD Justin Dittman, the runner-up for 4th man of the year. That's a lot of offensive firepower as well, but a lot of versatility on this team. I think defensively they're going to be a lot better than maybe we've seen in years past. And I like the switchability, the different lineups they can throw out there with this squad. So I got Tri-State up there. And the other team I got on the outside of the bubble is Ghost Ballers. I like that they added 2 big 3 vets as well. I think that goes a long way. Darnell Jackson was he came on strong, just like Justin Denman. They were arguably the two best undrafted players added last year. And to pair him alongside Chris Johnson, probably one of the most underrated players in this league. Scary big man duo. And then they added Jermaine Taylor. And if Jermaine JT is healthy, he is a huge threat. I mean, he's scary good when he's healthy. He's still trying to come back from a torn Achilles. I think he dealt with COVID a little bit last year, but when he's healthy, he's one of the best in the business to do this. Probably a guy that probably should have still been playing in the NBA when he first came into this league, but he's really good when he gets the opportunity. And, a return of a healthy Mike Taylor. You got former scoring champ Ricky Davis. I like those ballers and where they were headed last year before the Mike Taylor injury. So I'm expecting them to be around the same area they were last year, if not contending, higher up in that top 4 spot. Then, see, this is where I really hate the rest of this list, because I really do think like all these teams are really good. Like, it's really hard. It's so hard for me to come away from this power rankings saying a team at the bottom is the worst team in the league. Cause I don't necessarily think I really don't think so. I think there's like a tied for 8th place with like 6 teams or whatever. Tied for 8th place was like 6 teams or 5 teams, however many, like I think there's 5 or 6 teams that I think probably could be interchangeable, at least towards the bottom, maybe even the bottom half, bottom 6 teams could be interchangeable here. So with that, regardless, I got to put someone in the 7 through 12 spots. So kind of like on the fence, on the bubble, we'll say. We'll call the other tri-state ghost ballers outside looking in teams. On the fence here, we got Aliens, Power, and Three-Headed Monsters, the 3 teams I said I was having the most issues with. So I just kind of squished them into the middle there. But Aliens could be one of the best. They could be the best team. They could be the worst team. They could just be, they could be the best team or the worst team. So I put them as the middle of the pack team because I really don't know what they're going to do. Look, they got a lot of experience in 3-on-3 game. They're going to have a lot of chemistry right off the jump. I love their addition of Deshaun Stevens. I don't really know what to expect from Adam Drexler. I'll just be real. I really don't. Not a ton of professional experience. He's obviously the commissioner of Hall of Fame NBA great Clyde Drexler. And I've seen footage of some of his game. He looks pretty good. I just don't know at, what level he's playing at and how he fits into everything they're doing here. But I do think that if Lasmanis, Ivosev, and Bullet are really on the same page and are really as good as they say they are, this could be one of the better teams, and I could be really wrong right here. In terms of power, like I kind of squished them in that middle spot, mostly because of experience, league tenure. I don't know, the culture they feel like Power just is always contending. They always have good leadership at the top. Katina Mobley is top 5-6 player in this league when he's healthy, even at the age he's at today. He just struggles to stay healthy, but he looks like he's getting back into form and can be really good for him. Royce was really good for them last year when he was healthy. And then interested to see what their number 1 pick in Glenn Rice Jr. does. But this is definitely a team of that's going to fill their role and do what they need to be able to win. And I really like Power. I really think that Power's another team that could surprise us. I could be very wrong with where I currently had them on this power rankings roster. And then Three-Headed Monsters, to go from 2nd to 9th is a little troubling for me to do, for sure. But that's how much of an impact I think Reggie Evans has, and I think that's how much of a loss. I'm trying to emphasize how much of a loss that really is to their team. Reggie Evans really makes this team go. I'm not saying that they don't have a good team. Jonathan Simmons is a excellent pickup, I think, alongside Rashard Lewis, who's former MVP, been great in this league. And then as the team, or as the years go on and the team adds different players, he does what he needs to do to make sure this team gets to the playoffs every year. They're the only team to make the playoffs every single year. They got a new head coach and Reggie Theus. I think he had some unfortunate circumstances with Bivouac, and I think he's actually one of the better coaches in this league that comes really prepared and runs Interesting sets with the team. Kevin Murphy, co-rookie of the year, like dude's a bucket. I just think the loss of Reggie Evans is that significant. I think other thing the question here is like Mahmoud is 53 years old. He's the only guy to beat Father Time still at 53. But at what point does Father Time catch up? I don't know. I said last year that I think he should have played in the championship game. He could have made an impact if he played at certain spurts, but I think defensively it's hard to play him. So those are just some question marks. That's not me like doubting anybody. Those are just question marks I have within this league that's added tons of talent. Like seriously, like it's hard to be a mainstay in this like year in and year out already with the limited roster spots, but now to do so in the amongst the type of players that we have in this league, like those are just some of the question marks I have, and I think Reggie impact is insurmountable. The bottom three, still tough for me to do, but one of them is very self-explanatory. So let me just get that one out of the way. Or let me just talk. So we got Ball Hogs, enemies, and bivouac. Let me just get the enemies reasoning out of the way. I've trusted enemies too many times the past 2 years since their inception and in 2019. I'm not doing it again. I would rather them prove me wrong. I would. I'm not going to put them at the top again in the top 4, just for me to get it wrong, or just for them to be at the bottom again. The 2019 season, things got off to an okay start. They ended terribly. Last year, let's just hold them accountable. I don't think Nick Young came in too in shape, came in taking this very seriously. I don't think they had great chemistry throughout the year. I think Elijah Stewart and Isaiah Austin are really good players, and they'll make this team go. But I don't think the supporting cast around them was good. I thought there was a lot of shots thrown up by Swaggy P. I think he was surprised by the guys he was going against, or like, the level of competition a little bit. And, I'm hoping they come back more prepared and stronger than ever. I just don't know the chemistry. I've heard Sek Henry is really good, and the footage I think it was from the Drew League. Yeah, I got to watch his game from the Drew League, and he looks like he could be one of the players that we're not talking about enough. Seriously, Keith Benson is supposed to be really good defensively. He could be really good for them, but I'm not going to get caught putting them in the top 4 just for them to end up in the bottom 2 again. Nope, not going to do it. Prove me. I would love to be proved wrong. Seriously, I would. It would be ironic. Be the one time I put them at the bottom, they make it into the playoffs, but nope, I'm not going to do it. So long explanation to say I don't trust them. Around them, I had Ball Hogs. Ball Hogs at 10. Yeah, Ball Hogs would be here at 10, and Bivouac at 12. A lot of it's just there's question marks. Well, I think this is really my reasoning behind it, is there was just more question marks than the other teams had. Look, Barbosa and Jody Meeks were really good for the team last year. Will McDonald's been great with Ball Hogs, and he definitely deserved a call up to be the co-captain. They added Stacy Davis and Karan Iverson. I really like the formation of this team, but history says that Ball Hogs hasn't been good. And when you're already trying to put, like when I'm already trying to put together these power rankings, and there's so much added talent, and it's hard to like understand preseason wise before any first game has been played, like where to put these different teams. I'm going to go off historical reference to try to put this together, and Ball Hogs got a lot better. I think there's not going to be, if there's a 1 or 2 win team, I'll be really shocked. Like I think a lot of the teams at the bottom will be 3-win teams. I think there won't be a lot of teams that have 1 loss. I think we'll see a lot of teams with 2 losses, 3 losses. And then on the flip side, see, some teams like at the bottom with 3 wins or 4 wins, right? So I'm not necessarily saying because they're a 10 seed, like I have them at 10, that they're going to be like a 0-1, 2-win team. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just, I could see them equaling the record last year. Like, I don't know. I haven't seen how Stacy Davis and Iverson come into this and stack up. They look really good on the outside looking in. Like on paper, the format of this team, the construction of this team seems really solid. And I like the play style Rick Barry goes for. I haven't seen him play. So from a preseason standpoint, I'm going to put him at 10. And then Bivouac coming in with a lot of inexperience. Obviously, you got Gary Payton, who's never missed the playoffs as a coach for three-headed monster. So good at the top from a coaching perspective. Gerald Green's going to be really good in this league. I don't think this team's going to go like 0-6 or, I guess 0-8. Hopefully they get to play all the games, but 0-8 or 1-7 because they have Gerald Green. Will Bynum's been, Bivouac probably should have been in the playoffs the first year they joined the league, and Will Bynum was a big reason for that. He was good last year when he played. You add Corey Brewer, add Ike Diogu, and Jeff Ayers. This team's going to be really solid defensively. A lot of it's just, how well does this team come together and perform? I think chemistry plays a bigger part than a lot of us imagine. The guy said no, at least for the Killer 3 squad. Dante said that wasn't a big part of it. They just come in and hoop and then they figure it out. But I don't know. It just seems like as time goes on and we kind of figure out tendencies and how guys play and like what guys are open to achieve and stuff. Like I feel like as the season progresses, it does matter for some teams. And I just don't know how it's going to work for Bivouac. So unfortunately, they kind of it's just kind of more of they were at the bottom of the barrel last year. I'm starting them off at the bottom of the season because I don't know if they necessarily did anything outside of it. Obviously adding Gerald Green. I don't know if I just don't know how the team's going to look. So it's hard for me to sit here and put Bivouac and make a good reasoning for why they're at the bottom. I don't really have a good one. I don't have a good enough reason to put anyone at the bottom of this power rankings. That's why this has been so difficult. But within this preseason power rankings, I'm going to put them at 12. And that's why I said week 1, it could be so interesting how everything shifts within at least what I have from a preseason standpoint, because Three's Company, who I have at 1, and Bivouac, who I have at 12, are playing each other. They could set the whole foundation of how this really, how this should really look. So I'm definitely going to revisit this, definitely going to make some changes to this, especially after week 1. But for the time being, this is what I got. I don't know if my week 1 predictions will necessarily reflect off that because of my uncertainty already going into the power rankings, but I gotta put something together and hold myself accountable. And sometimes it's good to have some humility and self-reflect and say, hey, you're a real idiot, pal. So that's going to be the point of this power rankings. And that's going to be it for the first half of this episode. Thank you for everyone who's tuning in. On the back end, we have a dope-ass interview, so make sure you stick around. We got Stacy Davis, the number 4 pick in the 2022 Big 3 draft to Ball Hogs. Really cool guy. I'm really excited to see his presence in the Big 3. He seems like he's super ecstatic to join this league, and really excited for you guys to hear the conversation we had. So thanks to everyone. Again, make sure you're following at Fourth Man Pod on all social medias. YouTube.com/fourthmanpod is where you can watch the podcast, or another way you can listen to the show. And then Dash Radio, the Nothing But Net channel. Thank you guys, as always, for giving us a platform to provide more Big 3 content to basketball hoops fans out there on your platform. So that being said, let's get to our interview with Stacy Davis. Today, we're welcoming on the number 4 pick from the 2022 Big 3 draft. And what Ball Hogs hopes is one of the catalysts to get them over that hump of getting to the playoffs. And Stacy Davis, appreciate the time once again. I know we had a decent conversation right before this, but excited to kind of get into, everything leading up to the Big 3 and then your expectations for it. So thanks for the time.
Absolutely. I'm excited.
Let's start with kind of this past season and your professional career. Most of your career you've spent playing overseas, and you come from, you played college ball at Pepperdine, where you had a very successful career, the number 2 scorer in school history, the number 2 rebounder in school history. Before Kessler Edwards and Colby Ross, there was Stacy Davis, right?
Yeah.
Play most of your career professionally. You've got to travel the world and do what you love. But I would really like to know a little bit more about your last year. Like, you just finished up a really strong season playing over in Poland. Where do you feel you grew this season as a player, now being an experienced vet?
Yeah, I definitely think that I grew defensively. honestly, when I first got there, I had told my teammate Sharon, shout out Sharon, I'm gonna send this to him, but I had told Sharon before the season, my biggest thing was improving defensively.
Mhm.
And I think I accomplished that. I think I kept myself in good shape, and I kept myself to the point of being able to guard every position, 1 through 5 in switches, and just making it a point that teams weren't going to target me on defense. They weren't going to game plan to go at me. Obviously, you're going to have moments where, teams are attacking you just off of maybe like a pick and roll, kick out, whatever the case is. But I just took a lot of pride in knowing that I wasn't on their scout in terms of this is who we're going to attack. And I took my defensive matchups very seriously. So for me, I think that was probably the biggest leap, man. I think that was probably one of the weaknesses of my game. I always felt like I was a solid defender, not saying I'm like otherworldly now, but I always felt like I was a solid defender. But I think this year I just took another step in terms of team defense, one-on-one defense, and just, really making it a point to win my defensive matchup every night.
100%. I think that's so interesting, the transition now, because like now you're this strong two-way player. Offensively, you've always had a lot of game, but like defensively, you're a good defender. Now you've turned yourself into an even better defender, which is so vital into the league you're about to join, the league you're about to be drafted into. Defense and versatility is huge. But let's start with just like the big three in general. What did you know about the league? Have you been keeping up with it? And where did the opportunity to potentially play in this come from?
Yeah, so I hadn't been keeping up with the league too much. I had been seeing some things here or there. I actually know Alex Scales that plays in the league these past couple seasons. So he is based out of AZ, so we've worked out a couple times, and just kind of seeing him be able to compete and stuff like that here and there. But to be honest, I hadn't kept up with it too much. But the opportunity came just because, kind of like what we were discussing before, I had gotten the opportunity to play against Leandro years ago during the summer. That's one thing that I think is incorporated into a lot of this is there's so much that happens during the summer where basketball players from all different professions, whether it's overseas, G League, NBA, wherever it is, even intercontinentally within Mexico or anything like that, a lot of guys play against each other. So I've had the opportunity to play against him, and he took a liking to my game, and he had talked to Coach Rick about me, showed him some film, and he also liked my game, which for me was very gratifying because obviously, you have a Hall of Fame coach and a 10+ year NBA vet that take a liking to how you play your brand of basketball, how you compete, all those things. So that's really kind of when the opportunity presented itself. I was finishing up my year in Poland, and they had reached out to me, and I was like, man, this proposes a great opportunity for me to not only play against great talent, but the biggest thing for me is like I get to play at home at the crib for the first time. And this past year was my 6th year. So the first time since college, just being able to compete in front of my family, friends, and they don't have to be up at like 6 in the morning to watch,
Yeah, that's huge.
On some crazy link using a VPN.
Right.
So once I was proposed the opportunity, I definitely felt like I had to take it. I had turned down some other summer opportunities, but in other countries. And I just didn't feel like that was something that I wanted to do, just being away from home for so long, but being able to, compete and participate in such an innovative league that the Big Three is, but then also being able to play at home. It's like, how can you turn that down?
Yeah, 100%. I think that's a big reason why a lot of guys do play in the Big Three, right? Is just the opportunity to play stateside in front of your family, especially when you're playing overseas for a really long time. And then too, like we were talking about before we actually started recording, is that like there's that like community within the basketball world that's a lot smaller than it actually seems from like maybe someone like myself on the outside looking in, especially during that summer. Big Three is just like an even smaller version of that, but it's a really like strong, connected group. I just feel like with a lot of camaraderie, each week and each week, just like, regardless of what team you're on, right? And get to associate yourselves with these different players. So that's really cool. So
Right.
Leandro actually reached out to you for the opportunity, or you're saying the league reached out to you? Because, oh, go ahead.
No, so they had just said that they had liked my game. So
Oh,
Leandro
nice.
had
Okay.
just reached out and was like, "Hey, there's an opportunity to play in the BIG3, this, that, and the third." And so that's kind of how it came about. I hadn't heard from the league obviously until I entered my name into the
Mhm.
draft pool and to the combine. But yeah, they had just and honestly, it was crazy enough because it had been years since I had played against them. So it was kind of gratifying to know that I, kind of made a mark, and he felt that I would be able to contribute to the success of the team, especially like you said, just getting over that hump of being able. I know last year they had their most successful season, but the one thing about the BIG3 is so competitive because the only
Yeah.
top make the playoffs. And I don't know if it's different this year, if it's the top 6 or what. But I know in the past it was the top 4, if I'm correct, right?
Yeah, and I think from my understanding, it's still the top 4. Now, like you
Yep.
said, innovative league, it could always change. You never know with Cube. I mean, even think about the draft order. I mean, each round is its own lottery. It's not like the worst team. Like Ball Hogs has been going through. I don't know how much you know about the history of the Ball Hogs outside of last year. They've been going through it.
Right. Yeah.
They've done a good job developing, but
2 years before that they had gone through it. So this past year, it was
yeah,
such a big thing for them to kind of make that step, but still miss the playoffs in a sense.
yeah,
But
huge
yeah,
strides.
right.
Yeah, it's really like I think I'm not sure if you like understand the gravity of like how vital you being selected at 4 is, because the league has shifted so much in the sense of like the first few years we saw a lot of like bigs go early, right? Like they were the hot
Right.
commodity, and like you were. What's that?
No, I'm just saying, like, being a big is a like if you're 6'9" up, you're gonna
Yeah,
have a job. So
yeah.
being able to is always a thing, especially in a league like this where it's half court. I feel like that is, and it's such a physical league. That is like imperative.
Yeah, and we saw that with some of the first few picks, you and Glenn Rice Jr., who went number 1 overall. For you guys to, bigger guards now, it seems like we're seeing go like within that first round, where, like I said in the past, it was always big. I think last year one guard went top 5. He's like, I think it was Dusan Bullet, who's the captain of Aliens now. But even that was like really shocking to us, just to see like a guard go so early. So I think like, one, for you to go so early is a huge testament to your game and like what they thought about you, because Will did say on a show a couple episodes ago that they wanted a big guard, and they wanted a big man to play opposite of him. I thought they were going to go big man first.
Right.
Instead they went with you. Talk to me, I guess, a little bit about your draft night experience. I mean, I feel like it's like almost like a second chance or redemption within the BIG3 to get to be drafted. Maybe if you went undrafted within the NBA draft. So, where were you? What was that like? And
Yeah, I was actually at home. I was watching the whole draft, and then
nice.
obviously when the pick came up, I recorded it and I made a caption like, "Hey, mom, I'm a first round pick." So yeah, it was really cool, man. It was a whole thing for me. I didn't do like a crazy celebration. I was at home by myself, but yeah, man, it was a whole thing. Like it felt really good, obviously, to be taking that high. But yeah, so it wasn't anything like crazy. I didn't do anything too crazy. I was just watching the draft at home by myself. But it was a incredible feeling I had, kind of like you said, like a second chance, so to speak.
100%. And now you got some new teammates. Obviously, you mentioned Leandro, but you got Jody Meeks,
Mhm.
Will McDonald, who played overseas for a really long time as well.
Right.
One of the few guys that didn't play in the NBA. And then Karan Iverson, who they drafted in the second round pretty early. Have you had a chance to, I guess, talk with the rest of the team, or get a chance to watch footage of Ball Hogs outside of, or from last year, and just kind of what are your thoughts on some of your new teammates and the expectations moving forward for you guys this season?
Yeah, so I actually did leading up to the draft. I watched, I think, 2 games from the Ball Hogs last season. So just kind of seeing how Leandro played, seeing how Jody played. And then obviously last year they had the White Mamba. So shout out, he's not on the team anymore, but just watching how those guys played and seeing how I could, complement them. But I haven't had a chance to, outside of Leandro, I haven't had a chance to communicate with everybody yet, so to speak. I've communicated with Leandro and Coach Rick. And we've obviously exchanged, we got on a call a couple times and just got to talk and get familiar with one another. But, excuse me, but yeah, so that's kind of been it up to this point. But in terms of, I think you were talking about just like expectations for the big three. I think for, obviously because it made such a big leap last year in terms of their production, I think this year is definitely making the playoffs. And seeing the type of guys that we have on our team and that we drafted, I think that's possible. I know for myself, and I reiterated this to Leandro and Coach Rick, I'm like, yo, I'm coming in here to do whatever y'all need me to do. Whatever role you need me to fill, if it's that, PJ Tucker role, like I'm here to do it. Whatever it is that I need to do, but I know that I'm coming in here like with a defensive mindset where I'm just like, again, I want to make sure that I'm doing my best to win my matchup. And obviously it's not going to just be one matchup because there's so much switching within the 3v3 league. Just making sure that I can speak for myself personally, that I hold myself accountable on defense and that I'm just giving the max effort and I'm holding my own, essentially. My numbers called offensively, I just do what I've kind of been doing for my whole career. But I'm going into this with the approach of like, listen, I'm just doing whatever it takes to win.
Yeah, I really like kind of the culture one that Ball Hogs is getting. I feel like there's a strong camaraderie within, those captains alone. And adding you guys, you and Karan within there is going to be, just a sense of that too. But also like, just like what they're looking for in terms of style of play, like just I think a lot of times we think 3-on-3, and even within this league, we've seen it. We think a lot of like ISO ball, 2-man game, pick and roll, pick and pop kind of thing. And I feel like for them, they just like really just want to like move the ball as much as possible and get the easiest open shot, which is really cool. Like just kind of like in a sense, the way I think basketball is supposed to be played. But a couple of things that you mentioned there that I want to build off of is one, has it set in that like Rick Barry, like Hall of Fame coach or Hall of Fame player Rick Barry is going to be your coach? And, what have been the initial conversations, in terms of like chemistry with you guys?
Yeah. So, man, I actually was talking to my friends today about that. They were just, they were like, you're saying all of this stuff so casually. And I'm like, man, I'm not trying to be casual, but I don't know how else to say it. But I mentioned, when somebody like Rick Barry says that they like your game, especially for somebody that prides himself on being respectable within the basketball community, it just meant the world. It was like, man, it's hard to describe the feeling, but it was just really dope. So being able to be coached by him, I'm all ears, man. I'm just ready to, soak up whatever game he has to give to me and just whatever knowledge he's willing to put forth, as well as being extremely coachable, so that way we can go out there and do our best to win. But like you said, yeah, they reiterated that, like, they want to, get movement, get the easiest shot. It's not gonna, their style of play isn't just, pick and pop one-on-ones. Obviously there's going to be that. There's always going to be in basketball, every league that you're in, there's always sets, but at some point set may break down and it may lead into a one-on-one situation, right? But the premise that they've kind of set forth in terms of the culture they want to have with the Ball Hogs is like movement. Let's get the easiest shot. Let's like actively try to play a good brand of basketball. And so they've made it kind of imperative that, we come in there in shape. And so that's been my biggest thing too, is just making sure I'm in great shape, not only like physically from a strength perspective, but also just from a cardio perspective, because I feel like the better you are with your cardio, you ultimately have like an upper hand within this league. So fast paced, you can increase the pace just because of how in shape you are and being able to do things at a faster pace, so to speak.
Yeah, a lot of people like or a lot of players within the league, I feel like talk about like just like the conditioning that's necessary, which you like from my mind, I'm thinking like 3-on-3 half court basketball, like that's shocking to me. But like if you think about like just like the constant movement and like just like flipping, roles offensively and defensively, like back to back, like there's not a lot of stopping points with like in between. Like it makes sense at the end of the day. And for Will, I think one thing he mentioned was like, outside of getting like a younger big to complement him, is like they wanted a big guard to potentially fill his, come in for him at points in the game. Maybe if you guys go a little bit smaller, which sounds like could be your role, right? Is like coming in, playing alongside Leandro and Jody as well. So that should be like a really, interesting like chemistry and role, in different aspects of the game. The other thing you mentioned was like kind of have that PJ Tucker role. That was kind of some of the comps I heard when you were initially drafted. But maybe for listeners on the show and even some new listeners to the Big Three that might not know a lot about your game, how would you describe your game? You mentioned being, a stronger defender now, but how would you describe your game and how you play?
So I think that I think I'm good at a lot of things. I think especially on the offensive end, I think that I can, put the ball on the floor. I'm able to pass out of situations, especially out of like the pinch post, low post, whatever it is. Good with my back towards the basket. I'm good being able to face up. I really pride myself on being able to make mid-range jumpers. The mid-range is not dead, but also press the floor and shoot threes as well. So I think, like I said, I think that I'm good at a lot of things. I think that I can do a lot of things on the basketball court. So I would kind of say that's where my game's centered around. But even to just talk about PJ Tucker, my coach had actually brought him up when I was at Pepperdine. Brian Moore, he had brought him up years ago. And this was before, like PJ was like PJ really. Like this is before, this is years before the PJ that we know. If I'm correct, I think around this time, PJ might have even been overseas in Israel or something like that, or might have been like his first year back in the league.
Yeah.
But he had even mentioned him to me. And what's one thing that people don't realize about PJ is like PJ could get a bucket. When he was overseas, like he was a hard-nosed defensive player, but he was about a bucket. Like he could go and get them. Man. So that's one thing, because obviously, the higher up you go, there's things that these teams need you to do. So it's not like asking PJ Tucker to come in and score 15, 20. Although I'm sure if he trained and like put his mind to that, he could potentially do that because he comes from that, framework, especially doing that for so many years overseas. But yeah, I think that is something that I'm capable of doing and aspire to do. Like I said, just hanging my hat on the defensive end, holding my own, and when my number's called, taking advantage.
Yeah, I'm excited to see you, play within this Ball Hog system, and excited to see you like defend guys in this league, give them fits, and like frustrate a lot of people because this is a physical league. So
man, I was talking to this same group chat, and they were asking me, there's like, man, they were like, who are you most excited about playing against? And I was like, honestly, man, I'm really like excited to, if the opportunity presents itself, being able to guard Joe Johnson, Rashard Lewis, Mike Beasley, obviously who's new to the league. But these are all guys that, I've watched play for years. Even guarding a guy like Isaiah Austin, like I've guarded him and played against him during the summer. So I've had that kind of experience. But some of these, OG NBA vets that you were a kid growing up being able to watch and even dissect their game and stuff like that. I'm really, really excited for that. I think that'll just, that is something that I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, I think outside of a Glenn being the number one pick, having like in terms of biggest targets on the back, I feel like a couple of other guys that like people really want to play against. Obviously, Joe being a 2-time MVP, he's always going to have a target on his back from like here on and so forth. But like Mike Beasley, Gerald Green, like I think those are a couple of guys too, like that are newer than the league. And I feel like everyone that's been in the league as a while is always like trying to, or even like newer to the league is like trying to like get under the, I guess like the newer, more prominent additions is the only way. I'm at a loss for words there. Or,
Right.
but yeah, I feel like that's going to be a lot of fun, especially for you. That's like trying to improve as a defender every day and like hang your hat defensively.
Yeah, man. That is like the ultimate test, you know, outside of and shouts out to Joe, because Joe might get an NBA ring this year. So shouts out to him.
Yeah.
But that's just like the test, man. Like even during the summer, like I revel that stuff. I enjoy competition. I love competing. You know, sometimes I'm gonna get got. That's what it is. You know, that's the game of basketball. But like Marshawn Lynch said, like I'm gonna get mine. Nah, but I revel in that competition, man. I really want to compete. That's what I'm looking forward to, and knowing that these guys have such great pedigrees, and like it presents a crazy challenge for myself. And I think as a basketball player, man, you always live for a challenge. Like you always want to be able to challenge yourself to see, you know, where you're at and to go from there.
Yeah, and I can't wait till they drop the schedules of who you guys play first. They dropped the week 1 matchups for Saturday,
Right.
so it looks like you guys could be playing anybody from Power to like Aliens, like Killer Threes, like all these teams are like really revamped. Like I'm sitting here, obviously covering the league, trying to just trying to do my due diligence and create a preseason power ranking. I've
Right.
never had a harder time, and I've been doing this like I've been covering the league like here independently probably since like the off season of season 1. And like usually there's like a pretty clear cut top 4 and then there's a clear cut bottom 4. Like this year I'm like almost scared to be embarrassed of how bad the power ranking could look because of who I put at the bottom and like who I put at the top. Like seriously, like this is a really competitive year that I'm like as a fan like just extremely excited for.
Absolutely.
It's going to be insane. Let me ask you about this too, because this is pretty new to the league as well. Obviously, last year they implemented the bring the fire rule, where you can dispute a lot of foul calls. I guess what are your thoughts around that? Have you had a chance to watch any like games where that's involved, and who would you like potentially want to go one-on-one against in a pressure-packed moment to potentially dispute a foul call, to potentially like I'm talking defensively, hold your own to make sure that they don't score that last bucket, that 50th point.
So if I'm getting this correct, dispute the fire is basically you challenge a foul call and essentially you play one-on-one to see whether or not the foul is goes or not.
Yeah. So essentially, yeah, bring the fire, you dispute a foul call. It's a coach's challenge, right? So the coach will have 2 bring the fire opportunities, 1 in the first half and then 1 in the second half. They don't carry over. I'm pretty sure it's just 1 each half.
Okay.
And we've seen them to win games. We've seen them in the championship at critical points. And yes, whoever wins. So it's whether you get the stop or offensively, it's whether you score the bucket or get fouled. It doesn't matter what the foul was. That player, it goes that other team's way.
Right. So you're saying, like, who would I enjoy guarding in that situation?
Yeah, with your back to the basket and they're potentially going up for the 50th point. And I guess just what are your thoughts around that? The idea about it?
Man, that's a lot of fun. I really like all of these like innovative things that are happening with the game, man.
Yeah.
You have something like the TBT where they do the elim ending. That's super dope.
Yeah.
Because I played in that I think 2 years ago, and just have a set point, like a set number that you get to, whether you're down 15, 20, or 5, knowing that that's the number you have to get to, it changes how like your competitiveness and how you go about the game. So I just love things like that. So there's bring the fire, there's a 4-point shot. There's even obviously they implemented the challenge rules into the NBA as well. So I'm all for it, man. I think it makes the game a lot more fun and entertaining, especially for like the consumers and the fans. Like, you dispute a call and it's like, all right, bro, check up. It's like
exactly. That's exactly what it is, literally.
Right. So it's but in terms of who I would want to guard, man, anybody. I'm not gonna run from from any one-on-one situation. I feel like I hold my own against anybody. I feel like, you know, that's not like a shot or anything. It's just, I feel confident in my ability to be able to keep somebody from scoring. And I think that opportunity, if it presented itself against anybody in the league, there's a number of great one-on-one players in this league. So I think it would pose, like I said, a great challenge for myself. But again, you know, that's what basketball is about, bro. We're out here to compete. We're out here to you know, to win. And if that's what it takes to win, I'm with it. I'm not gonna run from it.
Yes, sir. 100%. Last thing I want to ask you, I've obviously talked about everything on the court from the Big Three perspective, but like I said before, there's like a big like family, you know, aspect to the Big Three with every team going to the same city, right? And every team, like, you get to watch each other's games and hang out in the hotel or whatever the case may be there. But like, so that being said, like off the court, what are you most excited about entering this summer in your, you know, your rookie season within the Big Three?
Man, this is actually really crazy because all of these questions you're asking, I've literally spoken about these with my friends.
It makes it even easier.
Right? So, man, I'm just looking forward to, because, you know, they were asking me, they were like, man, you know, are you kind of like nervous, or like, how are you feeling about playing against some of these former NBA guys, this, that, and the third? And I'm like, man, listen, I play against NBA guys and all types of guys during the summer. So this is not new to me. But I think the biggest thing that I'm looking forward to outside of playing in the States is just kind of getting to know these dudes, man. Like being able to, you know, if the opportunity presented itself, being able to chop it up with like somebody like Joe or like Gerald, or even a Rashard, or even, you know, like a Steven Jackson, who's obviously a coach, something like that, where just, you know, kind of getting to know people. I'm really big on relationships in terms of me, who I am as a person. And that's kind of what keeps me going, especially when you get through the lows of a long season overseas, like being able to have solid relationships with your people back home and hopefully with your teammates. Those are really big things to me. So just being able to get to know these guys outside of who they are on the basketball court, and then obviously developing those relationships to the point to where it's like, you know, there's some shit talking going on the court or whatever. Like a competitiveness there. I'm really, really looking forward to that.
Man, that's super cool. And it's cool that you've talked about this, because it makes me realize that if your friends want to understand this from you, like other people out there, especially our listeners, are just as interested in some of those similar questions. So,
man, the Big Three is growing, bro. Like the Big Three is really, really growing. Nuts. I can't tell you how many people one already knew about it and were marginally interested, but then now are interested, obviously, because I'm a part of it. But two who didn't know about it and then now are interested because obviously they know that's in the league. Yeah, so the Big Three is growing, man. It's growing, and I'm excited. Like you said, like the fact that there's people that are reaching out to me and they're asking me these questions, and there's kind of like this giddiness about it. Lets you know that this is really an expansive league, an innovative league, and just, you know, something that's here to stay.
Yeah, 100%. And like, never have I ever, and never would I have thought of, especially coming from like the first couple of years, Ball Hogs dealt with the turmoil of like 1 in 7 seasons, you know, and taking to the last game to like win their first game. Never would I thought, when I see a fan base, like the most, I guess, excited fan base be the Ball Hogs fan base, because, you know, now the teams, some of these teams have different owners. They have multiple owners, and they're like fractionalize these teams. I'm telling you, I've talked to mostly Ball Hogs fans in terms of like some of the new listeners. Killer Threes and Ball Hogs have been the biggest ones. It's crazy. Man,
so, you know what's actually crazy, man? And I'm telling you, the basketball world and just are so small. So the I think it's the Krause House. I think that's how you pronounce it. That's the ownership group that bought into the NFTs of the Ball Hogs, correct?
Yep.
So a friend of mine who actually used to go to Pepperdine and was he was like a practice player for the girls team, Christian is actually a part of that group.
No way.
Yeah, man. So I didn't find out till afterwards, till like after the draft. And as soon as I, got drafted, he hit me up. He's like, bro, there's no way that you're about to play for the Ball Hogs. I'm like, yeah. He's like, man, I'm a part of da 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 da. I'm like, what? So and knowing him, man, he's always been like innovative. We were in college. He had started app, I think it was called Open Courts, which was basically just kind of like showcasing which courts were having 5-on-5 games, which courts were open, so people could go to an app and instead of
that's
right, pulling up to a park where nobody was there, or you could even coordinate times with other people on the app. Like it was really, really innovative, and had a pretty good following around Pepperdine too. So I know that him and the group that he's with are very much so like excited about the Ball Hogs this season, just because of their like love for basketball as well.
Yeah, because I think they were trying to like form a group to initially buy an NBA team, and I think like kind of now they're like, oh, we have the opportunity to buy a team at like, think about it, like you're like, so to buy all like 25 of the Fire NFTs is $625,000 total. Like you think about that, and it's like, oh, that's a lot of money, like especially for like just the average person. But if you think about buying a professional team in comparison to like what Steve Ballmer bought the Clippers for, like that's a steal. Yeah, like that's a steal. Like the low cost entry to buy a professional team is insane to me. So and Ball Hogs just seem to be like a big proponent to like, what the BIG3 is doing, and want to be able to like impact Ball Hogs any way they can. I got the opportunity to be on a Ball Hogs podcast, and they were talking things like trying to get you guys like sponsorships or like some kind of shoe deals, like anything to help the team. Like they're open to it.
I'm very fortunate, man, because I was able to be drafted into not only with a great group of guys and vets and with a great coach, but then also just having like this, like you said, community that's surrounding this group. Whenever you can have some good energy that's centered around your group, especially in professional sports, man, it makes the world of difference as a player. Because I've been in places and on teams where there wasn't a great atmosphere from the ownership group, from the presidents, from the GMs, or even from like the fans, so to speak. And that definitely plays a part into not like how you play or your success, but just how like positive and like giving and happy you can be when you have success with this team. So I'm excited, man. I'm literally counting down the days, like working every day, and I'm just like counting down the days like I'm Rocky. Like, let's get it. I'm ready to go.
Got about 18 days. So should be exciting. This is a random question. And I just had Deshaun Stevens on, so I wish I would have asked him this, but what number are you planning to rock?
So 5. So I wore 5.
Okay.
College. I wore 4 last year because my daughter wanted me to wear that one, but I'm going to go back to my roots. Also, 5 was also taken, so I couldn't. Shouts out to Sharon. Sharon took my number. I never told him that. But yeah, I'm going to have 5
now.
Yeah.
Dope. Sounds good. Got 5 on it. Well, hey, Stacy, I'm really looking forward to the season, what you do with Ball Hogs. Congrats again on being drafted as high as you did, and I appreciate the time today. And best of luck. Got 18 days until the season starts.
Right. Let's get it.
Appreciate it.
Already.
All right, that was our interview with Stacy Davis. Really excited for how this Ball Hogs teams look. Look, I put them at 10 in the power rankings. Don't mean any disrespect throughout the power rankings. It's just hard for me to put this together. But if there's any team that I'm rooting on time and time again to continue to level up and take that next step, it's Ball Hogs, and we've seen them do that. So for them to be at 10, again, I'm thinking they might be like a 3-5 record and be at 10. I don't know if that's logistically possible, but that's kind of what I had in my head without looking at any of the numbers or crunching any of the stats together to see if it makes sense. So if anything, I'm hoping that they make the playoffs, and I think Stacy could be a big reason why they do that. With just his offensively, he's really talented, and defensively, he's been considered the PJ Tucker and could be the PJ Tucker of this league. So interested to see that. Thanks again to Stacy for joining the show, and best of luck to you this summer. And thanks to everyone who tuned into this episode. Again, You can find more great content on our Twitter, Instagram, and yes, I'll do some TikToks at Fourth Man Pod. YouTube.com/Fourth Man Pod. You'll be able to listen and find the shows, have a visual of it, see maybe the players' reactions. We also got some streams previously that were live that you can find on there. And I've been saying it for a long time. Hopefully I will actually put together some videos, but be on the lookout for any kind of content coming this way. I have a few ideas in mind. It's just a matter of if I actually like it after I record it, edit it, and then look at it one time through. So I haven't been able to, I guess, please myself. I don't know if that's high standards or I'm just doing a shitty job. But either way, I'm hoping to put some more content out visually this season. And thanks to Dash Radio and the Nothing But Net channel for providing us with the platform time and time again on Mondays and Saturdays. That's going to wrap it up for this episode. Thanks again, and we'll see you guys next time.